We begin today the Gemara on Daf Nun Amud Beis, 4 lines up from the bottom of the Amud, where it says, Ad Masai Mutter Lahachser. The Mishnah is speaking about the halacha of Vaino, when someone was frauded in a sale, and the Mishnah says that you have time to be chayzer if the Vaino was a level of a shtus, according to the Tanakama, so then you can back out from the sale, or you can ask back for your money. But the Mishnah gave a time frame until when you could do that. So the Mishnah says the time frame is as long as it takes to take the object that you bought and show it to someone that will point out to you that you were overcharged. So the Mishnah, the Gemara says on this, Rav Nachman says regarding this time frame, this time frame is a limitation that was given only for the buyer. When it comes to the seller, if he was underpaid, so then he could always back out from the sale or say that give me the money that you owe me because you're underpaid. For him, there's no such limitation. The Gemara will soon explain. Rashi brings here that the difference is by a buyer, he has the object in his hands, so he has the ability to go to show it to someone to point out to him that he was overcharged. So if after that time he doesn't come back to have charata, we know that he was Michael. And afterwards he can't change his mind. But by the seller, he doesn't have the object in his hands anymore. He may not realize the mistake that happened here, that he was underpaid, until a while later when he has to sell it again or when he sees the difference. There's actually a lashon over here in Rashi. Rashi says that is if this object, if the price didn't go up in between. It's mashma from Rashi that if the price actually changes and goes up and still the person did not come back, the moicher did not come back and ask to get paid the full pay that he's owed. So at that point, some say, according to Rashi, at that point even the moicher can't have charata. But in the simple lashon of the Gemara, it's mashma that the moicher could always have charata. So the Gemara says about this name, shall we say that we could prove what Rav Nachman said, that there's a difference between the lekeach and the moicher. Why? Because in the Mishnah later it says Chazru l'divrei chachamim. So what's the continuation of the Mishnah? It says that Rav Tarfon said that the shear of Ino is not a shtus, but rather it's a shlish, a third, which then gives the seller much more of an ability to overcharge the buyer. What did the Mishnah say? The Tagrei Lud, the merchants of Lud, were excited. Samchu, they were excited that they were able to overcharge much more. But then the Mishnah says after that, then Rav Tarfon told them that in a case where there's a no and the buyer can back out, he can back out not just a short period of time that he can show this object to someone, but he can back out all day. Once they heard that the buyer could back out all day, so then they said forget about it. We don't want to accept what Rav Tarfon said. So now the Gemara explains, if you're going to say that this limitation of the time that the Mishnah gives, to show it to a tagar, or the limitation that Rav Tarfon said all day, that only applies to the lekeach. But the moicher could always have charata. So then mishumachi chazru. So therefore, it makes sense that they're going back on following what Rav Tarfon said, and they want to follow what the Chachamim said, because there's a big loss over here for them. The fact that you're empowering the buyer that he could have charata the entire day, that's a loss for them, instead of empowering the buyer that he could only have charata for a short period of time. But if you're going to say that the whole discussion over here regarding this time frame is not just a time frame for the buyer, it's also a time frame for the seller. We're discussing over here how long the seller has to have charata. If so, my nafkilahu mina. Why? What's the difference over here? In other words, why are we saying that the Tagri Lud, when Rav Tarfon gave a longer time frame, so then this is a loss for the sellers? Why is it a loss for the sellers? Just like the Rabbanan are giving a longer time frame for the lekeach to back out of a sale, the Rabbanan are also instituting this and saying for the seller that he also has a longer time frame. As much as Rav Tarfon came and said that there's a longer time frame, which is a benefit for the seller, for the buyer, there's also a longer time frame, which is a benefit for the seller. If he realizes that he was underpaid and he wants to have charata, he could have charata the entire day. So how could the Gemara say that when they heard that Rav Tarfon gave a longer time frame, so the sellers, the Tagrei Lud, felt the loss? Why do they feel a loss? It's a longer time frame for them. Elamai, it must be that for them, for the sellers, for the Tagrei Lud, it made no difference. Because anyways, they could have charat forever. The whole time frame over here, dafke pertains to the lekeach. So therefore, it was a loss for them when you're giving a bigger time frame for the lekeach to have charata. But the Gemara answers, no, it's not necessarily a raya, because loy, and it's not no raya because, again, sorry, I missed a few words here. Tagre Lod, the Gemara answers, the merchants of Lod, l'shchiach teto. It's not common that they should make a mistake to get underpaid. The Tagre Lod, they're the merchants, they know the price of the products that they sell, and therefore it's probably they got the right pay. That wasn't their main concern. Their concern was that the buyer, that they overcharge, because they know exactly how much they can overcharge. So over here, they don't want the buyer to have more than a short period of time to have charata. So even if you would say that the time frame is both for the buyer, for the seller, but they don't need more of a time frame. For themselves, they make sure that they shouldn't get underpaid. They don't want that the buyer should have any more time to have charata from the sale. And therefore, after they heard that Rav Tarfon gave the buyer more time, so therefore they backed out from following Rav Tarfon's opinion. The Gemara brings now a few stories there in connection to this halacha of Eino. Ushpazinche, the Rami Bachame, the host or the landlord where Rami Bachame was living, Zavan Chamra, he sold wine, and Vita, and he made a mistake. He charged a price cheaper than its market value. Ashkeche Dava Otzev. So Rami Bachame encountered and meets him and sees that he's upset. Amalei, so he asks him, Amaya Tzivis, what are you upset about? Amalei, so he answers him, Zvine Chamre V'toy. I sold wine and I made a mistake and I sold it for a cheaper price. And I want to get back. I want to get paid full price for this. Amalei. So Rami Bachama tells his landlord, Zil Hodabach. So go. You can go and retract from the sale or ask that money that you weren't paid properly. Amalei. So he tells Rami Bachama, but I thought that there is a certain time frame until when you can have charat or ask for your money to show it to someone. But over here, it's a longer period than that, and I didn't realize, so after this time, I can't have charat anymore. So they sent to ask this question by Rav Nachman, whether the seller could still back out or ask for his money. So here's what Rav Nachman said is halacha, the time frame is only given for the buyer. But a seller, if he realizes he was underpaid, he could always back out. And here the Gemara explains the reason. What's the difference? My timer. The lekeach has the object in his hand. So wherever he goes now with this object, he can show it to people, and they'll tell him, and they'll tell him whether he overpaid or not. So if after that period of time he doesn't come back, we know that he was meichel, and he can't come and retract from the sale anymore. Meicher, the meicher, he sold the object. He doesn't have the object in his hand anymore. It's going to take time until he's selling another item that's like this one, v'yada, and he'll realize whether he made a mistake, that he got underpaid or not. That may take a long while. So if it's going to take a long while, so we don't give him any time frame to have charata. You can have charata, as Gemara's lashon before was la'olam. Another story that happened with a person who gavra davenokat varshechi. Person was selling varshechi, which is silk strips of silk ribbons. Lizvune. So Kari Shita, he announced that the price for this is $6. But v'shavya chamsha. The truth is that it was only worth $5. But if someone would be ready to pay him $5.50, avashakal, he would be ready to accept that price. So now Asahu Gavre, this individual comes along and he's thinking to buy this. He says to himself like this: if I'm going to pay him $5.50, so I'm overpaying a little bit. But havi mechila. But then the halacha is, because I'm being overcharged less than a shtos, so therefore over here the sale will be in effect, and whatever I overpaid is considered to be mechila, meichelet. So I won't be able to get back my money. So let me do like this: Eten leishite. Let me pay him 6 instead of 5. And then over here, the oina is a 6th, if you look at the total price. So then, now I'll be able to go and bring the meicher, the seller, to a din teire and ask him back for the money that I overpaid, as the halacha of oina is. So they came to Rava to ask about this, whether he can ask back for his money. So here, Rava said there's a certain limitation to this halacha of Eino, that you could ask back for the extra money that you paid. Because lo yishanu ela b'lekeich min hatager. This whole halacha of Eino, that by the amount of a shtus that you were overcharged, you can ask back for the money or back out from the sale. That's only if you're buying from a merchant. If you buy jewelry or things like that, expensive items from a private individual, a homeowner, over here there's no halacha aveino, because over here the buyer should know that he's selling things that are very, very valuable to him, very sentimental, or things that are very personally valuable to him. And the fact that he's selling it, it's a very usual thing that people that sell their own jewelry or things like that, it's being sold for an expensive price, even more than the market value. And if you pay that price, there's no such a thing as as being overcharged by a private person that's selling his own private things. Similar story happened. There was a person that he had jewelry, bands. How do they attach kefi? Earrings or rings to sell. And over here, also similar, what happened was Kari Shittin, he was announcing that he's selling it for $60, Vishavi Chamshin, and really was only worth $50. If someone would be ready to pay $55 for it, have a shekel, he would be ready to accept that payment. Okay, so same thing, Asa Hu Gavra, a person came along, V'amar, and he says to himself, if I'll pay him 55, Havi Mechila. So that's the Ainah here is less than a sixth, so then there's no way I could demand back my money. It's considered to be a Mechila. Etnle Shitten, so let me pay him 60, and now the Ainah is a shtos, and that Beledina, I can take him to Adin Teire and ask him to give me back the money that I overpaid. So again, Asla Kamed Rav Chisda came to Rav Chisda and asked him about this. Amalei, Rav Chisda said, no, you can't ask back for your money, because Lo Yishon Velabelekech Min HaTager. The halach of Ainah applies when you're buying from a merchant. Avbelekeach Min Balabayis, if you're buying from a private person, Ein Le Olav Ainah. Over here, there's no Ainah. He's selling you things that are valuable to him for an expensive price, and that's something you could expect and know, and therefore you have to. Rashi says actually here that this is similar to what the Gemara is going to say later here in the end of this Amud, that there's certain cases where a person says to the buyer, Ein lecha alai ainah, I'm selling it to you, but you should know that I'm overcharging you, and there's no ainah over here. So over here as well, even if you didn't spell that out clearly, but it's a known thing that a person that's selling his own personal jewelry, that can be overcharging you, and therefore there's no halacha of ainah that applies. Amalei Rav Dimi said about this psak din, Yasher, that this is correct. Rabbi Elazar also said about this psak din, Yasher, that it's correct. Now, we want to ask on this from the very next mission that we're going to learn right here. But the Mishnah here says, Kishem she'oino lehedyet kach oino letager. The halachas of oino apply by a hedyet, by just a plain person, and the halachas of oino also apply to a tager, by a merchant. It sounds like the Mishnah is saying that the halach of a hedyet, what does it mean? Man hedyet. Who is this plain person that we're saying that I know applies to? So lav balabayis. Don't you think it means even a person that's not a merchant, a person that's just a homeowner selling his private things? Still, the halachas of of overcharging applies, and you can't say, oh, it's more expensive because he's selling something that's his personal or sentimental things. Doesn't apply. Rav Chisda, so Rav Chisda explained that no, bitzar daisa. That in the Mishnah, where it says that the Ainah still applies, that's if he's selling tzar daisa, which is very cheap garments, like linen garments or cheap garments that a person has that is made to sell. It's not personal, valuable things that he's selling. Avamani tashmishte, but if he has his personal things, his personal clothing, or personal vessels that he owns, the yikiri, which are things that are very valuable and expensive, Loi maznuluhu, he's not going to sell it ilav bedomi yiseri, unless he's going to charge a high price. So if you're buying these kinds of expensive items from a private person, you could expect that it probably is something that you're going to be overcharged, and therefore there's no inyan of Ainah over here. Both regarding the buyer and regarding the seller, yesh lehen Ainah. The isser of Ainah applies. A buyer is not allowed to underpay, and a seller is not allowed to overcharge. Another thing that's what we just quoted here, kishem she'Ainah lehedyet, just like the halacha of Ainah applies by a plain person, kach Ainah letager. So too the halacha of Ainah applies to a merchant. Rabbi Yehuda says, Ein Ainah letager. There is no Ainah by a merchant. As we'll see in the Gemara, there's a few ways how to explain this in the Gemara. Okay, let's wait for the Gemara. It'll explain why Rabbi Yehuda says there's no Ainah for a merchant. Another din, says the Mishnah, Mi shehutal olav, the one that it was placed upon him, meaning the one that suffered this fraud from this Ainah, Yadai alel Yaina. He has the upper hand. Ratza Aimaloi Temli Ma'isai. So if he wants, this is the buyer, he says to the seller, give me back my money that I paid. I don't need this object. He wants to nullify the entire sale. Oi, Temli Mashanisani. Or give me back that extra money that you overcharged me. Talk to Gemara. So the first halacha, the what? The last point of here of Yodei al Yaina. It's a different point. It's saying over here Yodei al Yaina that he has an option to either back out from the entire sale, or you could say, give me back that amount of money that I was overcharged. That's the point here. What's the source for the first din in the Mishnah where it said that both for a lekeach and for a meicher there's the din of ina? Because the Torah Rabbana we learned in the Braisa, the pasuk says, if you're selling something to your friend, don't overcharge him. There should be no ina. Okay, so from the first part of the Mishnah, I see that you're not allowed to overcharge the buyer. How do I know that the Isser of Ina also applies when the Lekeach is underpaying and the Meicher is the one that suffered the fraud? Talmud Laima, the pasuk then says, if you're buying, do not know Ina, that you shouldn't fraud the seller. So you see, clearly in the pasuk it's saying both, that Ina applies to the Meicher and to the Lekeach. So the Gemara explains, why is it necessary for the Torah to spell out both? It's necessary for the Torah to say that there's no Ina for the Lekeach, and it's necessary to say that there is a no. Again, it's necessary to say that there's a no by the lekeach, and it's necessary to say that there's a no by the meicher. Because the ikas rachmana meicher, if the Torah would just say that a meicher, that there's a no, that he should not fraud the buyer, the reason is because when he sells, he knows the price, he knows what the market value is. So if he is overcharging, he's doing it b'mezid. In such a case, the Torah is saying you're not allowed. The lekeach that underpays, he doesn't know exactly the price of it. So over here, maybe when he underpays, the Torah says there's no din of Eina that applies. He's not doing it b'mezid. So therefore, the Torah is saying that no, the buyer as well has to be careful when he pays to make sure that he's not underpaying. On the other hand, if the Torah would say only regarding the lekeach, that there's a din of Eina on his behalf, because he is the one that's acquiring something. He's the one that's gaining here. Why? The Amri Inshi, people say, Zavnes, when you buy something, Kanisa, you acquire. You have the object now for yourself. You gain. People say when a person sells something, the Avudi Kamayvit, he loses it. Because the Amri Inshi, people say, Zavin, you sold an object you have, Oivit. So you lose out from this. Why? Because you get money for it. Then what happens? That money gets spent, and then you end up with nothing. Right, so the point is that it's the buyer, the one that's gaining, and the seller we consider to be the one that's losing. If so, maybe I should say, so over here regarding the seller that overcharges, over here the Torah, the halacha or the isser of Eina does not apply, because even though he's overcharging the buyer, but the buyer is gaining. He's the one that's losing out. So because he's losing, maybe the Torah allows you to overcharge. Tzricha, so therefore the pasuk had to say, even regarding a meicher, that he should not overcharge his buyer. This svara the Gemara here says regarding the buyer is a little, the Rishonim point out, it's not such a strong svara. Many times when you sell something, you don't lose. You have the money, and then with that money you invest in something else, you gain more. It's not necessarily a loss. But sometimes it could be this way. Sometimes when a person sells something and he's desperate and he needs the money, then he spends the money, then he ends up having nothing. So therefore there would be a svara to say that there should be no din of Eina. The buyer is gaining and the seller is losing anyways. So the next thing it said in the Mishnah was Rabbi Yehuda, ein Eina letager. There is no Eina by a tager. What's the reason for this? So now the Gemara will explain that what this means is that this tager, this merchant, that you underpaid him, there's no din of Eina by this merchant. Why not? The reason is, so first the Gemara asks actually, Mishum shehu tager ein lo Eina, because he's a merchant, so there should be no Eina, you could underpay him, why not? Why should there be no Eina here? Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav, so Rav Nachman explains the name of Rav. Betager safser shana. We're talking about a merchant which trades. He buys and he immediately sells. So in such a case, there's no Eina if you underpay him. My time, what's the reason? Because made the Yodes Vinte Kameshavi. He knows exactly the value of this object that he's selling. He just bought it. He just paid the price for it. So if he's selling it and you're underpaying him for it, it must be that he accepted this lower price. He was Michael. He wanted to have the money even though it was the lower price. Why is he selling it at a loss? He sold it like this for a loss. Probably what happened is he found another very good deal that he needed cash for. So even though he has to sell it on a loss, but it doesn't matter to him. He's ready to take that loss in order to buy some other object which is very valuable to him. So we know that he was Michael because he knows the price and he realizes all of it. Now when he comes back and says, oh yeah, I was underpaid, it's not that he just wants to get back his money that he already was Michael on before, that he was ready to sell it. The fact that he's a Tager, and is a Tager Safser, he buys and sells immediately, so he knew exactly what's going on. So therefore we assume that he was Michael, and therefore he can't have Charata later. That's one pshat over here and what Rav Yehuda says. Another pshat the Gemara says, Rav Ashi says, no, it actually is the exact opposite. When we say that by a Tager there's no halacha of eino, what it means is, the whole limitation of the amount, the value that we applied before regarding oino doesn't apply to him. And therefore, even if he was underpaid, less than the amount of oino, which was the shtus, the 6 that we mentioned before, he can back out from the sale. And what's the reason for this? So Rashi says the reason is because this merchant, this is his livelihood, this is his parnasa, this is his whole source of life. It's not just someone that's randomly selling something. Because this is his entire livelihood, so therefore every percent, every little profit that he makes is very valuable to him. So therefore, even if he was underpaid less than a sixth, nevertheless he can back out from this. But the Gemara brings in a brayse that said like Rav Nachman's pshat. Tanya kava say that Rav Nachman, Rav Yehuda says Tager ein lo yoino, by a Tager, by a merchant, there is no halacha of eino, and the reason is mipnei shu baki. He knows the price, and if he agreed to sell it for a loss, there's a no, there's a shtus, but he knew the price and he was ready to sell it, so therefore he was definitely Michael. Next thing the Mishnah said, Mishahotul al alav yada ala yaina v'chulu. The one that experienced the aina, he got the loss over here, so then he has the upper hand. If he wants, he can say, give me back my money, and I don't want the whole sale altogether, or tali mashenisani, give me back the money that you overcharged me. So the Mishnah gives the example for this. In what case? It gives the example for a lekeach. That the lekeach, if he was frauded, he has the upper hand to either back out from the whole sale or say, give me back my money. So the Gemara asks on this, Mani Masnisin, who is the Tana of our Mishnah? Loi Rab Nasan, V'loi Rab Yudan Nasi. It seems like it doesn't follow, not Rab Nasan and not Rab Yudan Nasi. The Gemara here doesn't bring the details of this machlokes of Rab Nasan and Rab Yudan Nasi because it's a brayse that was quoted on Afnun Amid Beis. And there the Gemara quoted the brayse that Rab Nasan says that when it comes to any case of eino, so then you don't have any option to back out from the entire sale. If the eino was the shtus, at the amount of a sixth, so then the sale is in effect. But all you can do is you can ask back for that money that you were overcharged or you're underpaid. That's Rab Nasan. Rab Yehuda Nasi though says, and Rab Yehuda Nasi gives an example of the seller, not of the buyer. Rab Yehuda Nasi says regarding a seller that was underpaid, that he has an option. He can either say, give me back the object I sold you, I don't want the entire sale, or he could say, pay me that amount that you didn't pay me yet. So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi only spoke about the seller. And in our Mishnah, it says you have a choice, but in our Mishnah it speaks about the lekeach, about the buyer. So therefore the Gemara says it doesn't go not like Rab Nasan and not like Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. And the Gemara spells this out. Rab Nasan, if our Mishnah would follow Rab Nasan, Masnisin Katani Ratza. In our Mishnah it says that the person has an option. If he wants to get back out from the whole sale, if he wants, he could just ask for the money that he deserves. And Rab Nasan didn't give an option. Rab Nasan says the sale is in effect. You could just ask for the money that is deserved to you. Or Braise lekatani ratza. Rab Nasan in the Braise doesn't give this option. On the other hand, Rab Yehuda Nasi, if you'd say that our Mishnah is Rab Yehuda Nasi, but Masnisin Katani lekeach. In our Mishnah, it gives the example who's the one that has the choice to say if he wants the sale to be in effect or he just wants the money that he overpaid. It's talking about the lekeach, the buyer. Braise katani meicher. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi gives this option only to the seller. So maybe there's a difference. It seems like Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is saying that this option is only given to the seller, and our Mishnah is saying that this option is given to the buyer. So it comes out our Mishnah is none of these opinions, not Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, not Rab Nasan. Simin Zayin Beis Reishin or Zab Rash. This is a simin of the 4 different Amiroim that are going to address over here this Mishnah. So the first answer, Omer Rabbi Lazar says, Ainazu, this Mishnah over here that says this halacha of Aina, Eni Yedei Mishana. I don't know who the Tana for this Mishnah is, meaning it's not Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, it's not Rabbi Nassan, it's another Tana, and we don't know who it is. Another answer, the Gemara says, Rabbi says, no, Lo'ilam Rabbi Nassani. Our Mishnah is Rabbi Nassan. And the Tani Nami Bebraise, Rotza, in the Braise that we quoted before, that says that Rabbi Nassan does not give an option. No, you have to say that Rabbi Nassan does give an option to either back out from the sale or ask for the money. So Rashi explains, according to this, what would be the machlokes between Rabbi Nassan and Rabbi Yehuda Nasi in the Braise. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi also gave an option. So Rashi says the difference will be that Rabbi Nassan is saying that the option is given to the Lekeyach, and Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says that the option is given to the Meicher. That's what they're arguing about. And our Mishnah that says that you give the option to the Lekeyach whether he wants to back out or get his money back, that's going according to Rabbi Nassan. Third pshat, the Gemara says, Rava says, Lo'ilam Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Our Mishnah is following Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Umay the Shayr b'masnisna kamafarish b'braisa. This that the Mishnah did not spell out, the Braisa spells out. The Mishnah spells out this halacha of Eina as it applies to the Lekeyach, and in the Braisa it spells out the same idea as it applies to the Meicher. But really, there's no difference between the Meicher and the Lekeyach according to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Either way, you have the option to choose if you want to back out from the whole sale or get the money that you weren't paid properly. Ravashi says, Dekanami, I'll prove to you, like the pshat of Rava, that this is the pshat in the Mishnah. Because in the beginning of the Mishnah, what does it say? Echad ha-lekeyach, v'echad ha-meicher, whether it's the lekeyach or the meicher, the halacha of Eina applies. The Isser of Eina applies by both of them. And then at the end of the Mishnah, umefarish le-lekeyach, when it comes to spell out when the Eina happens, what is the options that you can do? It only spells it out regarding the lekeyach. It doesn't say anything about the meicher. So Shema Mino, from this we understand, Shiyur Shayre LeMoicher, the Mishnah left out, it didn't spell out the whole thing that it applies also by the Moicher, but it's understood that what it says regarding the Lekeyach applies to the Moicher as well. And in the Braisa it spells it out. Shema Mino, that's a proof that this is the Pshat in the Mishnah. The Gemara now starts a new subject here, a Machlokes regarding the din of Eina, Itmer, we learned the following Machlokes. A person says to his friend, he's selling him something, and he says, look, Al-Manas, I'm selling this to you with a condition that the halacha of Eina should not apply over here. If I overcharge you, you should have no claims against me. So Rav says, Yesh le'olav Eina. Even after you make this condition, it doesn't help. The halacha of Eina still applies. Shmuel says, no, ein le'olav Eina. If you make such a kind of condition, so that condition takes effect, then there's no din of Eina. Says the Gemara, Lema, should I say that Rav Domek Rab Meir, what Rav says follows Rab Meir's opinion, or Shmuel Domek Rab Yehuda. And what Shmuel says is like Rab Yehuda. And as we learned this, a similar idea in a Braisa. The Tanya, the Braisa says as follows, a person says to a woman, Harei at mukadeshesli, you should be married to me, but al-minas she'en lecha olai she'ksus v'ayna. With the condition, though, that I will not be obligated to provide for you what the Torah says, she'ksus v'ayna, to give clothing, food, and the marital relations. I have no obligations to you for any of this. Harei ze mukadeshes utnoi batel. The condition takes effect, and the Tnai is totally worthless. Divrei Rab Meir. And the reason is because you can't make a Tnai masna al mashakos b'teira. If the Torah says that in Kedushin you have these obligations, you can't make a Kedushin and then say, but I'm exempt from these obligations. Torah says Kedushin requires these things. So the Kedushin takes effect and the Tnai is totally worthless. Rabbi Yehuda says, regarding the money matters that the Torah obligates you, Tnoi Kayim. The Tnai is in effect. So over here, regarding the Sheikh Sus, the clothing and the food, for that, the Tnai is in effect. For the Aina, Rashi says there's a Tsar Haguf, so, and there's other Rishonim say it's a mitzvah. For that, the Tnai does not apply, but for Sheikh Sus, the Tnai does apply. The reason is because when it comes to a money matter, if she wants, she could be meichel this. She could say, forget it, I'll support myself, I'll buy my own clothing, I'll buy myself my own food. So if he makes a condition with her that I won't give you, just like she could be meichel it for herself, so too he can say, I don't want to have this obligation, and this Tanai regarding mammon takes effect. So what do we see? Right over here, there's a machlokes regarding an obligation that the Torah obligates you regarding a money matter. Could you make a Tanai to pati yourself? So Rav that says that you can't make such a Tnai is following Rav Meir. You can't make the Tnai by Kedushin. you can't make this t'nai regarding Oina, which is also a money matter regarding overcharging a person. And Mashenkin Shmuel follows Rabbi Yehuda that says when it comes to a money matter, if the lekeach would be meichel the no, it would work. So the meichel could also say al menash ein lecha alai no, and the t'nai takes effect. So the Gemara says no, it's not necessarily the same thing as that machlokes by kedushin. Amalach Rav will explain to you. Ano the omri afil Rabbi Yehuda. What I say over here regarding oino, that you can't make a condition that there's no oino. That's even according to Rabbi Yehuda there that said by kedushin you could make this condition regarding a money matter. Why? Because over there he tells her this condition and it's very clear to her exactly what she's going to be losing here, what she has to be meichel for, and she was meichel. So therefore, regarding a money matter, if she could be meichel, the husband can make this condition that I won't give it to you. But over here, when you make a condition, the meicher makes a condition with the lekeach that there should be no oina. Mi yada the machel. Does the lekeach know that there is oina here, that he's being overcharged, to know that he should be meichel? He's being told, I'm selling this to you, and I don't want to hear anything from you anymore. No oina. But he thinks to himself, it seems to me like this is the right price. He doesn't realize that there's actually a no here. And then later he sees that there's a no, he's going to want to back out. He doesn't really fully, willingly accept this t'nai. So therefore over here, the t'nai does not work. That's Rav's opinion. On the other hand, Shmuel says, I can tell you that what I say, that when you make a condition that there's no way no, that condition takes effect, that's even according to Rav Meir that says regarding a kedushin, by a money matter, by kedushin, that over there the t'nai does not take effect. Why? What's the difference? Rav Meir over there says that the t'nai does not take effect, because over there, when the person says, the man says to the woman, I will not be giving you clothing or food. So he for sure is right now uprooting the t'nai of the Torah, the chiyuv of the Torah, that you have to support your wife. So over there, in such a case, Rav Meir held, you can't be mastal mashakos of the Torah. But over here, in our case, who says there's going to be actually oina over here? Who says he's being oiker what it says in the Torah? At the time when he makes the t'nai, before this person is actually overpaying, so he's telling him that I'm selling it to you and there should be no oina. So right now he wasn't yet over on what it says in the Torah, or he's not being oiker the actual obligation that there is on him. Right. So therefore, in such a case, Shmuel says that the t'nai will take effect. Okay, 1 second. Rashi adds a very nakuda that if you give afterwards. When you get to the Sheksus V'ayna, you could argue that over there, who says also that it's going to be uprooted? He's making a t'nai that he's not going to support his wife, but maybe later he will end up supporting her. So over there, you could also argue that he's not necessarily uprooting it. So Rashi says no. Over there, he's telling her right now, I'm not giving you Sheksus. So this woman knows, I'm not getting anything from my husband, I have to buy it myself. If later the husband decides to give it to her, so now he's giving her a gift. It's not because of his obligation. Shenken over here, regarding the oina, at the time of the t'nai, who says that it's going to be uprooted? Who says there's going to be oina over here? Maybe there won't be any oina. Okay, so now Rav Onan said, "L'didi mifarshili minei demar Shmuel." It was explained to me from Shmuel regarding this that Shmuel said that you can make this condition that there should be no oina. That it depends the language that the person uses. A person says to his friend, "Al menas she'ein lecha olai oina." The condition is that you should have no claims upon me for the sale, for the price. There's no oina here. So then ein le'olav oina. Then there's no oina here, as Shmuel explained. But al menas she'ein boy oina. If you come and say a condition, I'm selling this to you, and there is no oina in it, in the actual sale. Harei yesh boy oina. So then you're saying there is no oina in it. But if it turns out later that there is oina, so then the sale is going to be null and void. Okay, the Gemara now asks on Rav's opinion, Meisvei, it says in the Braisa, Hanoise v'hanoisim ba'amona. A person that does business with someone, ba'amona, and he trusts the person that does business with him. What does this mean? Amona here means that you have things to sell, and you have an agent, basically, that's selling it for you. He goes around and he sells it for you, and the money that he makes, he gives it all to you, and you're paying him a certain set amount. You're paying him for schar tirche. He's hired by you as a salesman, basically, and you're paying him for what he does. So in such a case, You're trusting him that whatever money he made from the sales, he's giving you, and you can't have any tightness to him. And it's, when you say to your friend, I'm selling this to you, with the condition that there's no ayna in the sale, in both of these cases, there's no halachas of ayna. It doesn't, no halacha of ayna applies over here. So what do we see over here? That regarding the first case, regarding Amana, when a person is a salesman selling your product, you rely on him. If he made extra money more than the market value, he's giving you everything. He's not allowed to keep anything for himself. There's no you can't have any tightness to him. And the same thing over here when you clearly say Ein lecha alai no, so then there's no din of no. So it's clearly like Shmuel said. So Rav the Omar Ano Domri Afil Rav Yehuda. Rav said that his opinion is L'Kula Alma, both according to Rav Meir and according to Rav Yehuda. In our case, it's different. In our case, there's no halacha of Eino at all. So in our case, everybody will agree, according to Rav, that there is a din of Eino, even after you make this condition. So how many? This Braisa that says that there's no Eino when you make a condition, who is this Braisa going according to? So the Gemara says, Omar Abaya. So Abaya answered to this, Machvarte, so the best answer that we must say, going back to what the Gemara thought in the beginning, Rav Omar, Rav Meir, what Rav said, that the condition does not help, even regarding a money matter, is like Rav Meir, that says that even by a money matter, you can't be Masna Mashakasa B'Teire, and Shmuel, Rav Yehuda. And Shmuel goes like Rav Yehuda. So therefore here, this Braisa is going according to Rav Yehuda. So it's not a question on Rav. That's one answer. Another answer the Gemara says, based on what we learned before, Rava Amar that is, Rava says, Loi Kashya, there's no contradiction. Kan Bistam. If it's a case where a person says that I'm selling this item to you, and there should be no Eino on it. But he doesn't say more than that. He doesn't spell out exactly, specifically what the market value price is and what exactly is going to be overcharging him. He just says, "Stam, there should be no Eino." It's in such a case that Rav said that there will still be Eino, because the person is not really being Michael. The person is thinking to himself, it seems to me the price is right, and he accepts it as is, but when he sees that he was overcharged, he's not being Michael. So therefore, there's still going to be a din of Eino. Over here in this Braisa, when it says that there is no Eino, it's when you spell it out to the person very clearly, exactly what the price is and what it is that he's being overcharged. The Gemara brings a Braisa where it says, "Is the Tanya, as we learned in the Braisa, when was it said that even if you make a condition, there still will be Eino? If it's just stam, you tell the person there should be no Eino, but you didn't spell out specifically that over here there is going to be Eino. But if you spell it out, that is, Moiche Amal Lekeach. The Moiche says to the Lekeach, Chayfet Zeh Shani Moicheloch b'Masayim. I'm selling you here this object for $200. Yedeya Ani Boy. I can tell you, I know She'ein Shavel Mana. It's only worth one mana. Almanas She'ein Lecha Alai Eino. I'm selling it to you for double the price, with the condition that you have no tinus, there's no Eino. In such a case, Ein Le'olav Eino. You spelled it out very clear to him. So over here, he knows there's Eino, and he still bought it. So you can't say that he didn't realize that there's Eino. He realized. And the same thing, the opposite. The lekeach, the buyer tells the seller, I'm buying this from you, b'mana. I'm buying it to you for half price, just for $100. I know for a fact that it's worth double the price. There should be a condition that there's no Eino over here. So in such a case, when you're mefarish, so because it was spelled out very clearly, it's clear that there's a mechila and there's no din of Eino over here. Now, the Gemara brought up before this case of this salesman. When you have someone that's a salesman for you, that you trust him, and then he brings you all the income from his sales, and you give him a schar terchi, you give him a certain set price for the work that he does for you as a salesman. So here the Gemara brings another brisa that discusses a certain halach in relation to this. A person that does business with a salesman that works for him. So now here, just before we see the Gemara inside, there's two ways how you could use a salesman. Or really one is a salesman and one is a person that's really independent. The two ways are either, as I explained before, you have a person that's your salesman, and whatever income he makes from it, he has to give it all to you. You're the owner, and he's just your salesman, and then you give him a set pay for him being a salesman for you. That's one way. That's what the Gemara calls amana. And then there's another thing, and that's a person that basically he's a storekeeper, and he buys from you on wholesale, and he pays you right away all of the pay that he for what the object that he's getting from you wholesale price, and then he goes and sells it a little bit at a time in order to be able to make a profit on it. When he sells a little bit at a time, so you can make a profit. Those are the two ways of how this works. So now it says over here, a person that's selling ba'amone where he's trusting someone else, you shouldn't make the calculation with this person that when you, let's say that the example I think here that Rashi gives, or the Farshim give, Rashi over here gives the example of wine. Let's say you're selling wine. You have very good quality wine, and then you have bad quality wine. What's the difference between them? When you're selling good quality wine, so this is something that's very easy to sell. When you're selling bad quality wine, it's going to be hard for you to sell. You're going to have to sell it little by little. So therefore, what are you going to do? When you get to the good quality wine, this person comes, you want to make your money right away. You're a wholesaler, you have a lot of wine, so the person comes to you and says, I'm taking all the wine from you, wholesale, and I'm paying you right away. And then this person will be able to sell it to someone else also pretty quickly because it's good quality wine. Okay, and he made his profit and you got paid the wholesale price. That's one thing. That's by the good quality wine. But what's with the bad quality wine? He's taking this bad quality wine from you, but he can't sell it right away. So what is he going to do? Little by little, he's going to have this bad quality wine in his store, and little by little, he's going to sell it for you. So over here, in this case, he's your salesman. He's giving you this payment for the wine only after he finishes selling this wine, because he can't sell it right away. He's going to sell it little by little, and then later he's going to give you the profit that he made, and you're going to just pay him for a schar tirche as a salesman for selling you this bad quality wine. So the Gemara over here is saying that you shouldn't make a cheshbon over here with this person when he's taking these two qualities of wine, the bad quality and the good quality, in the way that I just described, and then you tell this person, you know what, you're taking these two different qualities of wine. So when it comes to the good quality wine, usually the way it works is you pay me right away the wholesale price for the whole thing, and then it's going to be easy for you to sell right away. Good quality wine will be easy to sell. So over here he tells this person, because you're doing me a favor and you're taking the bad quality wine also and you're selling that little by little and then you're going to pay me for it, I allow you to keep the money for the good quality wine that I'm giving you. You don't have to pay me right away for it. When you're done selling me also the bad quality wine, then you'll pay me now for the good quality wine. And here's the punchline. And the main point is, and he tells now this salesman of his, I'm not going to pay you any fee for you being my salesman. Why not? Because I'm allowing you to keep the money of the good quality wine until you finish selling it all. After you finish selling it all, then you're going to have to pay. Even though usually for the good quality wine that you buy in wholesale, you have to pay the one that sells it to you right away because you're able to sell it very quickly. But over here he's telling him, you don't have to pay me right away because you're taking also the bad quality wine. And so therefore, I'm allowing you to keep that money of all, the income of all the wine until you finish selling everything. So you're not allowed to do this. Why are you not allowed to do this? So Rashi says, because this looks like ribbis. Why does it look like ribbis? Because you're allowing the salesman to keep the money that he usually has to pay up front, and if you're allowing him to keep it until he finishes selling it all. So therefore comes out that you're not going to be paying him the usual fee that you pay for a salesman. Why? In exchange for the fact that you're allowing him to keep the income until later, and he only has to pay it back later. Comes out that he's not getting paid that fee because of hamtona, of the time that he's waiting, that he doesn't have to give you the money up front. That's like ribbis. The whole idea of ribbis is that when you wait for you allow a person to keep money for a certain while, then he pays the interest over here as well, because you're allowing him to keep that money for this while. You're not going to get he's not going to get paid that usual fee that you have to pay the salesman. So that you're not allowed to do.
He's giving you everything back at the end.
He's giving
everything back to the.
Yeah, he's going to pay him everything back, and then but the point over here is that because he's paying you later, so the usual pay that you give for a salesman, you're not going to pay him. You're going to tell him, I'm not paying you as a salesman because I'm allowing you to take this all and sell it, and you're only going to pay me when you're done selling everything. Even though usually when you sell something ba'amana, you pay, or when you sell something b'shava, that is. When you sell something b'shava, which means that you're buying it on wholesale, you usually pay up front. But over here, you don't have to pay me up front because I'm allowing you to keep the money until later, so I'm not paying you for the job that you're doing me as a salesman. So it comes out that because you're allowing him to keep the money till later, to pay later, so therefore you're not going to pay him as a salesman, that's like ribbis. So you're not allowed to do that. If the salesman is selling for you good quality wine and bad quality wine, either both of them you sell him ba'amana, which means that he sells it for you little by little, and he pays you in the end, and you just pay him a fee for him doing the job as a salesman. Or the bad quality wine and the good quality wine, both of it b'shava, which means he takes it all from you on wholesale, and then he goes and sells it retail, and he makes his money, and you don't have to pay him anything. Now here, the Braisa says other details beneged to this halacha when you have a salesman, and you're paying him as a salesman. But you have to pay him also other things. You also have to pay him for what he spent on hiring someone that carried on his shoulders this wine or whatever items it was, or schar gamel. You have to pay for the fact that he hired a camel, or schar pundig. You have to also pay him for what he paid for an inn that he had to stay in. Now, when you hire a salesman, besides paying him for the job that he did as a salesman, you have to pay him all his other expenses. However, the Braisa finishes off, schar atzmai ein neitel. However, the pay that you're giving him as a salesman, that he doesn't take. From you, shekvar nasan le'schare mishalim, because you already paid him for this. Now the Gemara asks right away, what does it mean you already paid him for this? He's a salesman. You have to pay him. What does it mean you already paid him? So the Gemara, schare mishalim heicha kayavle. Where did he already get paid for this as a salesman? So the Gemara explains, we're talking over here about a person that's giving his linen garments or cheap clothing that he's selling for him. The deal between them is for every 100 garments that he sells, 4 he can keep for himself. So therefore the deal is already part of it. It's already built in that he already got paid those 4, so you don't have to give him any additional pay besides that.